Hey, what's up YouTube? Today we are talking about the monster Nikon P900. It has an 83x optical zoom, possibly the highest zoom in the market right now. The lens measures the focal length from 24 mm till 2000 mm, 2000 mm in 35 mm equivalent. That's crazy. Now mega zoom have been a really raise in the market of late, not so much the point and shooters. This one is a fixed zoom camera, and this not exactly a mega zoom, not even an ultra zoom. This goes into the territory of hyper zoom. 83x, the last we heard was I think 60x or something. So Nikon's really trying to kill the mega zoom market with the P900. It also kind of advertised as being an all-round camera. It also has a macro mode, so macro on one side and an extreme telephoto on the other side, on a pretty decent as far as point and shoot camera are concerned, 1 by 2.3 inch sensor. We'll see how the build quality, the button layouts, the user interface, and most importantly the performance goes. The P900 is a big, chunky, heavy camera. It's 900 grams, which meaning that it might be slightly heavier than my D750, which is a full frame DSLR plus a 50 mm 1.8. However, when you pick this up, it does not feel as heavy. The body is mostly plastic and it's ergonomically very good, so that the grip out here is very deep and it's very comfortable, which actually make this camera somehow manageable, even handheld and even at times with one hand. Now let's take a look at the build quality. It's mostly plastic. It actually feels plasticky, all the buttons and everything, kind of some metal here and there, but mostly it's plastic. Plus you have a rubber in places where you would hold the camera. Now there's one thing that I actually do not like. When you hold this camera and just do a slight jerk here, you feel that the lens is kind of too heavy for the slightly lighter body. So it kind of makes that slight, very slight creak noise. It's almost as if like, I mean, if you do it with extreme force, this is gonna come out. But that probably won't be the case, and you won't jerk it without extreme force. However, this actually feels, and it's not totally 100% integrated into the body. It just feels like this one, and this kind of scared me at first, but over the time when I started using it, then I was fine. The big Nikon ED lens, which has a focal length of 24 to 2000 mm and 35 mm, has an aperture range of 2.8 till 6.5. So 2.8 at 24 mm, 6.5 at 2000 mm, which I would say is pretty decent. This lens is constructed with 16 elements in 12 groups. Plus it also has VR, that is vibration reduction, which is kind of an image stabilization process. During still, you get full lens shift technology, which is optical image stabilization, but during movie it uses a hybrid or a combination of optical plus electronic VR to stabilize the lens. On the front, the lens is very apparent, big chunky lens. Other than that, you have your IR receiver, autofocus assist lamp, and the lens body also has a zoom button. And on top you have the flash, the stereo mics. Apart from that, you have the shooting, the shutter release button, and then the zoom lever there, FN button, power button, the shooting mode dial, and then also a command dial kind of. Your eyelets are there. On the back side, you have a non-touchscreen articulating, that's a 270-degree articulating monitor, 3-inch monitor. You also have your viewfinder, which is rather low res, and you also have an eye level sensor. So when you come closer to the viewfinder, the LCD automatically switch it off. You can also manually switch it off with this button right over the LCD monitor there. There are some other usual buttons over the back. On the right side, you only have space for power and HDMI, and on the left side there's the Wi-Fi button. It also supports NFC. There you see. And then below you have space for your EN-EL23 battery plus your one SDAC or SDXC card slot. So overall, your usual mega zoom kind of a button layout Build quality is good overall, but it's definitely not weather sealed. The menu is very well laid out. You have first the shooting mode, so whether you're in P or S, A or M, your options would depend on that. Below that you have a dedicated video menu, and then your Wi-Fi menu, GPS menu, and then your system data. You can switch on or off your digital zoom from there. However, I almost never use the digital zoom. You can change your white balance and metering and all those stuff, but there are various permutations and combinations on whether you can change a particular feature or not. You should better go and read the manual of P900 to actually know all of this, because that would make a too long of a video if we start telling that. But overall, a very nice, user intuitive, easy with big fonts user interface, which is responsive as well. The focus speed is fine, and accuracy suffers when the background does not distinguish itself enough from the subject. It's all the more true at the tele end. Although the OIS helps immensely while handholding at 2000 mm, still we recommend you use a tripod, especially under low light. As far as sharpness and details are concerned, the photos are decently sharp end to end. However, more often than not, they are perfect for online. While printing, you might need to do some extra sharpening. The detail level is below average when you crop to 100%, and it gets worse from center towards the sides, something we can expect from such a small sensor. We could get some very sharp photos while adjusting a few slides here and there in Lightroom, but because the camera only outputs JPEG and not RAW, so you cannot stretch them enough. Saturation and hue are mostly fine, but the camera tends to increase the vibrance on many occasions, specifically around red and pink areas. The camera goes well till ISO 400. ISO 800 is noisy enough to use only when necessary. ISO 1600 and beyond are too messy. We will not talk about dynamic range much, as it's not possible to do justice on a JPEG only camera. We like the already processed JPEG range and are happy to see that the camera does not clip highlights much. There is a pronounced keystoning at 24mm, but largely corrected as we move towards the telephoto end. We were impressed by the almost absent pincushion distortion at such an extreme range. There is a bit of barrel distortion, however, obviously at the wide end, but it's not as pronounced as the keystoning. The lens produces significant chromatic aberration across the focal length, with slightly less so towards the middle. The videos are relatively sharp at the center but quite fuzzy towards the corner. Overall, the crispness is not there. The color rendition is fine though. So then that's your brand new Nikon P900. So how do you like the P900? Do you think you actually need a 2000 mm zoom? You actually need this chunky body? You just need a pocketable camera for your everyday family events, or let's say shoot portraits or even selfies? Or do you think that you definitely need this because it can somehow replace those very expensive DSLRs plus those super telephoto lenses? You might not get the same quality, but you might think that if you do not have that budget, this might at least give you the reach, and the reach that could be much more than even the longest lens for DSLR possible. You do not have the sensor size advantage, only 1/2.3 inch sensors, but when you go to the market, you see most of the mega zooms, most of the point and shooters are of this sensor size, this or around sensor size. Now you should know that even a slight increase in the sensor size with this kind of a zoom range will increase the price multifold. You have the Sony RX10, which the sensor size is not much bigger than this one, but it also has a smaller focal range. It has only 8x, whereas this one has 83x, but that RX10 is almost more than twice the price of this one. So you need, you have to adjust somewhere. Here you get the reach, but you adjust on the details that you get from the sensor size. Apart from that, even its macro level is good. Almost everything is good. I would even adjust with the weight, but the main deal breaker of this camera, and if I consider everything, and if I have to tell one deal breaker or make a whatever one one yes or no, then the deal breaker is the absence of raw file support. Because what happens whenever you're zooming in your extreme zooming, and even at the 24 mm, we've seen that some part of the images are soft, too soft for a JPEG image, too soft to print out. So whenever you're at the extreme zoom in range, for example, you're shooting wildlife, you're shooting a butterfly, you're shooting a bird, it cannot be soft because they have very, very minor details. You want those details. And because this guy only supports JPEG, you already have a processed image. You cannot process that image further. It already threw away all those details of the veins of that particular butterfly, for example. So if it had support for raw files, even if it would give you a soft file, a soft JPEG file, but because you had the raw file, you have all the information, you could have extracted almost all the details possible. So I think that's the only reason that would keep me from buying this camera if I ever decide a full 2000mm lens. Now this camera has so much of potential. Only if Nikon had given it that raw file support, that would probably solve all my problems, and that would probably actually replace many of the DSLRs with the largest telephoto lens, and probably even I would have got one, but only because of the lack of raw support, I'll probably wait for the next model. If you like this video, please hit the like button, ask anything related to this camera and try to answer them all, and please subscribe to our channel and share this video to share the love. Ciao.